Hey, this is Jeff Thorne. I am the writer, producer, showrunner of the upcoming Avengers Black Panther's Quest TV series, and you are listening to A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live.
It's time. Talk time. Let's go. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live. Started in the 80s with Matt Cross. Dudes in the hood might have called that soft, but I carried that cross like Jesus did. Fast forward, I teach the kids to learn how to let go, live life, and show love to all things that don't matter where y'all from. And luckily, there's a show called Talk Time. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Dax kicks the facts on all the geek news, special guests and unbiased reviews. Suburban kids, the hipster street dudes, all can learn something new. Me too. I heard words when no faith is empty. I stayed the course, so my haters tempt me. Beat the podcast, that'll make them envy. It ain't too trendy, it's A.C.M.G. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the Prime Show. I am your ailing host, Xavier Josiah, still recovering from a cold, much better than I have been the last few days and last few episodes that we've talked. But like I said, we were going to do this and we're going to get this done. So we got a lot of news to talk about, as well as 2 reviews this week, one of them being Voltron. The final season is here. It has come. If you have not seen this yet and you're looking to see this and you don't want to be spoiled, do not listen to this show until you do, because there's some things to talk about, some really revealing things, some really great things. This has been a phenomenal series that DreamWorks Animation has come out with, and they have showed great respect to this. So we're going to talk about that and much more, including some explosive things and some sad things that came out of this particular season. We also have the Spider-Man movie, Enter the Spider-Verse, which finally came. We've been waiting for this since the day they announced it. A full movie based on Miles Morales and some other characters in the Spider-Verse. So we're going to talk about that. Find out, how did it do? Why did it get nominated for a Golden Globe? And why it should have been nominated for a Golden Globe. So we'll be talking about that in our talk topic of the week. But again, we have some news to talk about as well as the review, so let's not waste any time. Without further ado, let's find out what's new in the world of A.C.M.G.
And now, it's time to find out what's new in the world of A.C.M.G.
All right, folks. Let's get through this. And again, apologies for the congestive cold that I'm going through right now. And my voice sounds any different. But, you know, for the love of it all, in sickness and in health, we're going to get through this because we always want to talk. And part of me recovering is being able to enjoy and talk about all this. So let's not waste any time. Let's talk about why Kanye West is looking for Hideo Kojima in New York. He just tweeted out that he was in New York and he's looking for Hideo Kojima because he heard that he was there. He wanted to meet him. And it's interesting because, you know, some people are a little bit interested in why he wants to do it. You know, put all the actual controversy aside from him right now in the new version of Kanye that we've seen in recent years. If we would have seen, if old Kanye was back, you know, Kanye from the college dropout and graduation and all that stuff, and you know, dark fantasy, whatever. That Kanye, I would have been very interested in him working or meeting up with Hideo Kojima because, and for those who don't know who Hideo Kojima is, for gamers, hardcore gamers know, Hideo Kojima is the guy behind, or used to be behind Konami, which is the company that created Contra, Metal Gear, more importantly, Metal Gear Solid, and a whole bunch of other games. But Hideo Kojima has been the guy in front of it front of the Metal Gear front. He's the reason why, Metal Gear has been a thing. And he put Konami on a map and revolutionized the way games are played and watched. So he's one of the pioneers of that industry, of the gaming industry, no doubt. So, and just a pure artist in his creation of video games, just pure art. Like his stuff is in Smithsonian Museum, worthy. It was for the game exhibit at least, when Chris Melisinas put it out there. But Hideo Kojima, and Death Stranding is still in the works right now. He's working with Sony right now, Sony PlayStation exclusively, to bring out that with Norman Reedus starring in it. But to see Kanye be a part of it in a perfect world, that's a great thing. That is a really damn good thing because, say what you will about Kanye. Kanye is still a freaking genius at what he does. Him mixing with Hideo Kojima is a great move in a sense. I know people are going to actually, all jokes aside, because I put on the A.C.M.G. Facebook page that, somebody hide Hideo Kojima in a cardboard box because Kanye's looking for him. But all jokes aside, from an artistic perspective, this could be a really damn great thing. It's just so bad because I myself, since he's been in his ways, I have not listened to a Kanye song since. And it's sad because his music was so great. His music helped me uplift myself in some really dark times, especially when I was working. I was playing the role of the sheep, working in the corporate world with the sheep herders, the evil sheep herders in the corporate world. And I just decided to, leave the bunch. And, some of his music really uplifted me and helped me get through that. Spaceship in particular helped me get through that. But since he's, joined up in his political ways and shown his political side, it's been hard for many people to follow him. And so much so that, people have loved him so much that when they saw him team up with the president of the United States of recent, it's been crazy because people have literally cried at the sight of him and wearing that red hat and such. So it's almost as scary to see him do. And he has every right. He has every right as a human, as a citizen of our country, to go meet Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima has every right to want to meet him. If it's not based on anything political, it's all good. If it's for the sake of the arts, it's all good. It's just such a damning time that we live in right now with that. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what we do. But fear not, Jeff Keighley is going to be helping out in that because Jeff Keighley tweeted to Kanye, say, I got you on that. And that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. With me personally, I feel like Superman went injustice on us. That's how I feel when it comes to Kanye. Kanye right now is the injustice version of Superman. That's just the way it is. For me personally, everybody got their opinion on it. We'll just see how it goes from there. But we'll see what happens if he finds him. We'll see what happens if Hideo wants to be found. We'll see on that. Moving on to Netflix, interesting thing. Based on what I've read on comicbook.com, Netflix, all the Netflix shows based on Marvel characters that we saw, most of the Defenders pretty much. Really interesting thing. They have a contractual agreement, and this is Netflix, has a contractual agreement that none of the Marvel shows that has been canceled, that is Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, for instance, cannot appear anywhere for 2 years. I love this. I love this. I love this. This is a practice. This is a contractual practice that has been done many times before. Most popular in wrestling, the WWE, Vince McMahon from my acknowledgement, has made this popular. I don't know if he was the one that started this trend, but this is a trend that was popularized by the WWF or E for recent. Whereas if a talent is released from the company, they signed a contract stating that they cannot wrestle anywhere else from a promotion that is televised for 2 or 3 years, more likely 3 years. Sometimes there's some different negotiations depending on who it is, but and there's been wrestlers that and talent that has been able to do it post haste, but that's a rare thing. But for the most part, especially if you're a major talent, a major name talent that can't wrestle, that your talent, your name is so big, your brand is so big that if you go anywhere else, it'll bring viewers over to another company, that they decided to block that by making it you cannot wrestle in any other promotion that has a televised or pay-per-view right for 3 years. You can wrestle in indie leagues, you can wrestle anywhere else that is not going to make that much money, for televised rights, but you cannot wrestle there for 2 to 3 years. That's a strategy made by them to be like, this is an out of sight, out of mind situation. So they believe that after 3 years that you're not going to make a big difference. You're not going to make a big impact in their sales and damage their sales and all that stuff. So it's a smart deal. It sucks if you're the talent or if you're the intellectual property per se, because, it's a double-edged sword with it, but in some cases it's great, in some cases it's not. Depending on who it is. But in this case, for Netflix, this is a great deal. Getting them out of the loop for after 2 years, it'll help let Netflix build on themselves, and it'll allow, whoever's going to have it, whether it's Disney Plus, what they claim that it's not going to have it, it'll allow them to just, put it up and, do something different for the time being and probably reboot or rebuild that brand if they choose to do so. So that's an interesting. The one thing I am glad, at least for Daredevil's sake, is that they closed the book on the Kingpin saga with that series. I just wish they would have done the same with Iron Fist and Luke, especially Luke Cage, because Luke Cage left us on a big cliffhanger, and I would love for them to have followed it up. And there's no way they can do it now because Daredevil's gone and Iron Fist is gone. So there are really big connections to the two. Maybe, possibly with Jessica Jones because of the connection with Luke Cage. But other than that, I don't see this happening. And this is sad. This is really sad. They went to do all this work and you can't do it at all. Well, for Netflix smart sake, at least they won't have to go through this at all. And they don't have to deal with losing any, viewership in their behalf because Disney Plus all of a sudden is moving on their brands over to them. So I dug the strategy, and it's great to see that other companies are practicing this as well. There's some good in doing this practice. This is some really good doing this practice like this. So honestly, it's a great thing. So that's a great deal doing. Speaking of Netflix, those of you who are actually Sabrina fans, those of you who have probably been scarred by Sabrina, apparently. I can't believe people have really, really been freaked out about watching The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I actually love the show. I reviewed it a while back at the time, and I thought they did a hell of a job. And it must have been too good of a job because some people were actually freaked out by this, the Satanism of the whole entire thing. It is what it is. They wanted to be really cultural to the nature of things, to the community, I guess, and I guess they did their job. But with that said, Sabrina has a holiday special that was just released, I believe probably Saturday they released this, and I haven't seen it yet. I haven't checked it out yet, but it's just an extra episode, an hour episode, 55 minutes, I believe. I haven't checked it out yet. I will check it out and possibly talk about it next week, but it's out there. They have released it. I thought it was funny too because I thought it was after watching Voltron, I actually thought that it was just them, advertising that Sabrina's on and available. And I looked at it further. I'm like, wait, this is an actual holiday special? Oh, I'm down. So it's out there. It's going to be out there. Excuse me. And go check it out if you're a fan of it. Remember, this is the spinoff to Riverdale. Riverdale is just finished their really, really cool, really, really great first season. We won't see another season for January. So this is a great add-on to it. So I I love it. Go out of your way to check it out if you're a fan of it. And I'll talk about it definitely next week on next week's show. Depending on I'm going to do a show next week, but we'll check it out. But other than that, some last bit of cool news here, and before I get to the Voltron review, is a guy by the name of Hovante M. Williams had a situation with him and his friends just recently. Apparently, him and his friends were gaming in their apartment or in their house or whatever. Somebody called the cops on them, reporting some disturbance, apparently, in their room. So, apparently, the cops stopped by, and not only just one cop or two cops, it was a horde of cops. Now, normally in the situation like this, we hear it all the time, and Hovante Williams is, I believe he's black. He's definitely black. And his friends are black as well. So you hear these situations, and when it involves the cops, you're like, oh, holy shit, what's about to happen here? Well, excuse me. Lo and behold, we got some great news, especially in the spirit of this holiday. And this was really awesome. The cops came by, they appeared, they talked to him, find out what was going on. They decided there wasn't really any noise going on because it was just them playing a video game, and not just any video game. It was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate that they were playing. So upon, reviewing the situation, and the cops said it was cool, Hovante and the gang invited them to play Super Smash Bros. And asked who wanted to play. A couple of the cops actually raised their hand and said, yeah, let's jump on it. So not only did the cops come and, stop by, they actually he had them play. And there's a video out there of them actually playing with the guys. This is an awesome thing to see. You don't get to see this much. A lot of times when it involves the cops, it is absolutely atrocious of the results that happen. Sometimes, our people get shot up, over some dumb stuff or some simple stuff. T.C. Carson, shout out to him. T.C. Carson, the original voice of Kratos, been a guest on the show. Kyle Barker from Living Single, he just posted on Instagram where a Caucasian woman just was trying to, the cops were trying to stop her. She was irate, probably looked like she was drunk. She picked up a rock and threw the rock at him. The cops did nothing, but they were trying their best to commandeer this woman. Had that, and he said it best, had that been the shoe on the other foot of a different community, we've been known to be shot or shocked over some stuff like that, throwing a rock at a cop or something like that, or you're trying to hit a cop with a rock. So that's the world we live in. But to see this is one of those rare occasions. Shout out to all the cops involved in that situation with those guys, and really just creating a community with them. And it wasn't just like a black guy. It was just all different multicultural cops in there from what I saw. And it was awesome. It was just awesome to see. Shout out to the cops in there for, really doing their job and really evaluating the situation, using their critical thinking, and really creating a community out of the situation. So kudos to them. I just wanted to bring it up. I thought that was awesome. And it is game related. So, and look, Super Smash Brothers has brung unity between cops and our community. So shout out to Nintendo for that one there. So let's go ahead to talk about Voltron for a second. All right, so we got the final season of this show, and man, from start to finish, I can't believe it's actually been 8 seasons of this show. Not only just 8 seasons, but 8 seasons of phenomenal animation, of great storytelling, of great character development, just from start to finish. Never in years has an American company come in and adopted and taken over the rights to a Japanese franchise, an intellectual property from Japan, rebooted and superseded what they'd done. We've seen many of different anime adaptations into American franchises, such as Guyver, just recently, what was it, Death Note? We've seen a ton of these different shows, and lo and behold, seriously, they have all sucked. Super Mario, we've seen many of these things, and there's rare few that actually have succeeded better, if not the same, if not better than what we saw from the other. I mean, it's just amazing what we did. So here we got Voltron by DreamWorks Animation. And they knew from the get-go. We saw in the interviews and such, if you watch some of their interviews of the people behind it, they knew that they had a lot to go. They had a lot to prove. They knew that the fan base was strong and their opinions are strong. And if we did not like what we saw, we would hammer the hell out of them. They took that to heed, and my goodness, did they come back with it, by force. And what we got from this was a phenomenal series, season after season. Some of the seasons were short and we complained about it, but after a while, when it all comes together, we got some phenomenal stuff, man. I could not have been happier through this ride. This was a great ride, and season 8, made no mistakes at all. It delivered majorly. Just the season alone, just after the events of last season where they defeated Lotor, what we thought was like once and for all, Hagar became even more dangerous and darker than ever this season. So much so that she no longer took on the identity of Hagar. She basically evolved into this new formation of, and took on the name of Honerva, which just turned everything. She's now the main bad guy of this whole entire series. What I love about this is that in the original Voltron, Hagar the Witch was always the background character. Like, she did some things. She was pretty much like Skeletor, and his horde, pretty much. And, Evil Lyn. She was like the Evil Lyn of Voltron. But they never put her in the forefront. Like, Zarkon eventually got destroyed, but they never did anything after. That was it. But in this case, she took over as the main bad guy. And it's like, why not? Why not? Why not? She's powerful enough to be the badass. And with them linking her to Lotor, being Lotor's mother, and being married to Zarkon, which was never talked about in the original version. This is their version of telling of it, and it all makes sense. So, with her losing her son and her husband that she loved dearly, before she turned into Hagar and everything happened to her, which they revealed in this season, it really made a lot of sense for her to be the biggest bad guy of them all. And everything was revealed this season as to how she became Hagar, how, after Zarkon really turned into darkness in this point. And really, it just all made sense. So not only was she mad that her son died at the hands of Voltron, she wanted to like get everything back. She wanted her son back. She wanted Zarkon back. To do this, she had to go deep into the delves of realities. And with that, she wanted to manipulate and destroy every bit of reality in order to get back her son, in order to make things the way that she wanted back. So she's willing to go out of her way to do it, including manipulate Princess Alora's race, and in order to work with them, and destroying, Keith's race in the forefront of all this. I mean, she just went crazy. She just became an entity in herself. So they went through a lot of different situations throughout the season going towards that. But there were some really standout episodes here too. I mean, that really brought in some things, some really storyline developments, including Lance. Lance and Alora was kind of the big focus of this season, and from start to finish, it's the big focus that you got to follow through an entire season to the end, because there's a great start and there's a great ending, but it's also some sadness into it as well. Lance finally, get a chance to shoot a shot, and that was, some of the standout episodes here, and I'll bring up the standout episodes to me, was really cool that I loved. Episode 1 alone, which was called Launch Date. Lance, he went to go shoot a shot with Princess Alora after, the entire episodes of season 7. He was really starting to fall for her and really wanted to be with her. He decided to go for it. So he pretty much went for it this season, and went after and invited her to the parents' house to meet the parents and such, and finally to reveal his love to her. And she accepted. So it was really cool to see Alora really wanting to be with him. And then also actually doing this 80s makeover montage with Pidge and his sisters and such, and Alora's sister apparently. So they went through this whole thing along with Lance having to be approved by Karan, to be able to date Alora, and that went through a whole entire situation where Karan had him dress up in the occasional, I guess, mating garb or whatever that he had to put him up, which consisted of a pot in the head, dressing up in link sausages. It was really weird, but they wind up dressing up normally and greatly and approved by all. And they got, Alora got a chance to meet the family. And the deal was that Shiro apparently wanted everybody in the Atlas and the Voltron Force to relax and have some recreation time before they go out into this yearly travel and touring on the space before to try to go after Hornova and defeat her. And this was going to be a long run, so they had all of them spent a day together, but it was mostly focused on Lance and Alora in this case. So it worked out. She got a chance to meet the family, and by the end, they pretty much Lance revealed his true love to her, and it was a really great moment. And she accepted him. She embraced him. So they are a couple, and you're going to see them throughout as a couple through this whole thing. A part of you loving this, and a part of you has got to be asking, all right, what's the catch? What's going to happen here? There is a catch to this. So that was one of the great episodes. Another great episode I loved was episode 7. Day 47. It was kind of a filler episode, but it was mostly focusing on the Atlas pilots some of the Atlas pilots who were doing a documentary on what the Atlas crew and Voltron Force goes through on a daily. So you got a chance to see that. And part of the focus of that was Hunk. Hunk pretty much was baking the whole entire time, and that wasn't a necessarily segment that they wanted to cover because they wanted more exciting things going on. But lo and behold, they found out that Hank's cooking led to something more important, which brought peace towards two different factions, to civil factions, if you will. So, I mean, the kind of the moral of this is like sometimes food can bring unity together. And it's true. It is absolutely true, especially if you cook good. And this also leads to Hunk's future at the end of the actual series too. So it was kind of it kind of put some seeds into what's going to happen at the end. So I love that. Episode 8 was also great, Clear Day, which led the Paladins were convinced by this alien, I guess promoter or something like that, or a mayor or something like that, because they were told that they were going to get protection by Atlas and the Paladins, against the forces of Hornova, and apparently that has been happening. So he convinced the Paladins to come down to guard the festivities that this planet was having, the planet of Drazon was having, called Clear Day, which was just a normal carnival festival that they have, for us is a normal carnival festival, but gave the chance for the Voltron Force to spread out and have a lot of fun when they were actually supposed to be watching. But Cheryl convinced them to just enjoy things, but keep an eye open. Keith was the only one that was straight-laced and was trying to find out more information. Princess Allura, meanwhile, stayed home because she wasn't feeling well. She was getting these visions and everything. That led her into a situation where she ended up encountering Lotor, who apparently is back in some form or fashion, and was trying to convince her to actually, what was going on here with that? My notes here. She apparently, Lotor apparently appeared and was convincing her to get the power of the entity, the same entity that Hornova was using to gain more power, and he convinced her that if she takes that same power, which is kind of a dark power, that it would eventually be enough to defeat her along with the Voltron Force. She decided to go forth and take it, with the risk of knowing that it's going to be some repercussions with that. In doing so, there was also some events of Shiro, going into some intergalactic arm wrestling competition, where he ended up facing one of the enemies from a previous season, where they thought it was going to be some type of altercation, but in fact, the enemy that he was facing actually thanked him for doing so, for stopping him in the first place, because had he not done that, he wouldn't have moved to more positive means, and that being him becoming a champion of arm wrestling. So they made peace, and they made more peace by competing with each other in a more civil rivalry type of situation. So that worked out. It was a really great episode there, but it also led to more things to come in there, which also episode 8, 9, and 10 was a two-parter, which was called Night of Light, which had the Paladins in a void where they encountered the spirits of the original Voltron. And this is where everything breaks out. Everything reveals itself into what actually happened. How did Zarkon become what he was? And how did Hagar become what they were? Because if you remember last season, they kind of opened up and revealed some origin stories of Zarkon and Hagar before they became, and how Zarkon became who he was. So what is further every situation of more of how Hagar became who she was. They were a loving married couple. Zarkon was the original Paladin of the Black Lion. In fact, he was the leader of the Black Lion. And he wound up turning on the entire Voltron force. One of them was also the king, which was Alora's father. And apparently it was Hagar who killed the entire Voltron force there. So that was the situation there. I love the way everything tied in together. I mean, throughout every season, you learned more about Zarkon, and you found out like Zarkon was originally one of the, the Paladins of the Lions, and how Hagar. It just the writing and the storytelling was so on point. It was so much on point. I have, since I've started this show, and interviewing other people, including Jeff Thorne, who will be on the show sometime this week to talk about Black Panther's quest. I have gained way more, especially with the death of Stan Lee, I've gained a lot more respect for writing. I'm an artist by birth, and I have learned a lot more about the writing aspect than anything, and respected the writing aspect with certain things, especially how Jeff Thorne wrote Solo, which was a character that was really one of the worst characters in the Marvel universe, and he managed to make something of it. So that, writing does play a factor. This is what the art of, writing and art plays a really big role in this faction. So, but I digress. Getting a chance to see, the Paladins work together, and in these two-part episodes, you actually see Zarkon, because Zarkon's dead, so now he's one of the spirits. But now Zarkon, all of the original Paladins see how dangerous Hernova has become. They're all working together now, including Zarkon himself, to try to stop Hernova in this point. So that was a really good moment. Leading into the final part, which was my favorite, was obviously episode 13. They finally face Hernova to keep her from destroying all of the realities of the universe. And the only thing that I really would have liked from this part, with them talking about multi-universe, which is the new thing these days, multi-dimensions and universes, is that I wish they would have shown every single version of Voltron before leading up to this. And they didn't do that. What they did do, I will give them credit. They did do at the very beginning, the very first episode, I forgot to mention this, was they showed Pidge watching the original Voltron episode from the original Voltron, animated anime series, and saying that, in their world, that version of Voltron was just a TV show made by them, and they're the real versions. I loved it. And they even made fun of how Pidge used to really talk, how really it sounded. And she wound up, because she was the real Pidge, she, in order to get, discounts and free stuff, she pretended to be the actor that was playing her, which was actually the Pidge character from the original series. It was great. But in this series, when they did the multi-dimensional thing, I wish we would have seen every version, because if you guys remember, there were other versions of Voltron that came out way after the original. Like, this is not the first reboot. They came out with different reboots, unsuccessful reboots at that. So this was by far the best of them all, but, they just decided to mention that there were other universes out there. So you just had to put it to your own imagination that they're talking about the other universes as well. But they came to this reality, and they realized what she was going to do, and they had to stop her. the only way they had to stop her, and again, if you have not seen this episode or have not watched the series, please turn this off right now because I'm about to reveal some stuff. In order to truly stop her, with Allura having that new entity power, she had to sacrifice herself to bring order into the universes and make everything right again, meaning she was going to die. And I like the way that this happened in a sense because there's always a situation where everybody's going to miss her. And especially Lance, of all people, who actually began a relationship with her. I don't know how far they went with that relationship, but they had a relationship. And now he's going to lose her. He's going to lose the person that he loved. They went a different route about this because normally everybody's crying and begging him not to do this and not to do this and not to do this. He did, but it was so subtle. But he understood. He was very understanding of it. And you don't rarely see that. It showed sympathy and empathy for her having to do what she had to do. But in the concept of it, he understood and embraced it. And you don't see that much because it's always the same thing that you see when people have to do sacrifices. They cried. It's too dramatic. They went a different way about it. I loved it. It was a different change of pace. And she did what she did to save the entire universe and save the Paladins and save everybody involved. And, then they cut like a year later. So it was definitely, I'm like, maybe she'll come back. And they cut back to a year later and no, she's officially gone and everybody's moved on and done what they had to do. And it was really cool. You got to see the aftermaths of everybody. There was Lance, who now is a farmer, and he told the stories of, to the kids of the Avengers and everything. And they asked her, did he miss her? And he's like, yeah, I miss her very much. But I feel like also that she is everywhere. I'm always reminded of her wherever I go and everything that is, because she is everywhere now. And I just like the way that they handled it. I love the way they handled it. Lance's character has evolved majorly throughout the entire 8 seasons. He used to be the clown, character. Still is to some extent, but you got to see him mature and grow as the time went by. And he was probably the most evolved character of all the characters in there, bar none. It was almost like Keith was the main focus, and Keith had his own sense of evolution, but Lance really, he took a major leap in his character throughout that. All of them did. We didn't even think Shiro was going to be alive at this time, because there were times when we were like, okay, we thought he was dead. And no, he wound up taking on Atlas, and Atlas ended up taking on, a major thing. Which, by the way, excuse me for 1 second. There we go. Had to drink that tea. Still recovering. There you go. So, by the way, I forgot to mention a really cool thing about this. The last battle that they had, if you guys remember, Atlas, Atlas, I guess, is the is the version of Voltron, the car version of Voltron. Because you remember, in the original series, there was the Lions version of Voltron, but there was also the car version, which was like, I swear to goodness, it was like 20 or 30 different cars coming together to make a robot. But in replacing of that, Atlas took over the role, which became like sort of kind of the Robotech ship that transformed into this giant robot. Well, they went a little bit further. Voltron went Super Saiyan, or Fusion actually, and fused with Atlas somehow, and they merged together to create this evolved version of Voltron. And it was really, really awesome to see. So now even Voltron had a better way to travel into the void to get to go against Minerva. It was awesome to see in this thing. And it was just all great. But, going back to the aftermaths, everybody is doing something different. I think Keith became a volunteer or something like that, a head volunteer for other planets to, help them out in dire needs. Hunk became a chef, which, was a big deal. And he used his culinary skills to bring unity and, to other countries and everything. It was really cool. I think Karan, I forgot what Karan did actually. Pidge, I forgot what Pidge did too. They just went by so fast, but the biggest focus was Lance, Keith, and Shiro. And this was the kicker, because Shiro, apparently nobody knew, but Shiro went on to, move on with his life, fall in love with some guy. Yes, that's right. I said it. Fall in love with some guy and get married. This was the coolest shit I've ever seen, and here's why. If I'm correct, the people responsible for Voltron are the same people who did Legend of Korra. If you guys remember, the last episode of Legend of Korra had the most controversial scene where Korra was revealed to be in a relationship with another woman, with the one, I forgot the other character, and they end up falling in love with each other and, you know, becoming a couple. That made such a controversy at the time that Nickelodeon decided not to show those episodes on live air. It was the biggest BS ever, and that they ever did. It really created a huge uproar on their behalf. So, to me, when I saw this, I was blown away when I saw this. First of all, because not only did they show him get married, but they show him actually getting married to the gentleman, and showing them doing the kiss at the wedding, which was awesome because this was a shot. I'm also convinced that this was a shot at Nickelodeon. This is kudos to Netflix, kudos to DreamWorks Animation for doing this, because this is different times. And when they did that on The Legend of Korra, people were still in that mindset. And we're now at an evolved mindset. So they managed to take the shot and give it an opportunity to do it here. And the thing I love about this is that there was no hints, there was no lead in to Shiro ever being gay. And I guess the idea of this is that, what does it matter? You know, it is what it is, and that's all there is to it. We're human. He falls in love with somebody. Doesn't matter who it is. He falls in love with somebody. I love it because it didn't take away. And the thing is, too, if you would have revealed it beforehand, I think it would have put more of an impression of people into what they believe or have some type of, idea of what they think he should be. And, I love the fact that they just went about it this way. It's like, okay, he's gay. So that's just it. Okay, fine. Took nothing away from him. He was still a badass. He was still an arm wrestling champion. He's still the commander of the Atlas. He was still one of the best characters in the series. It's just it. What are you going to say about now? I'll still watch it again. Still know that he is. Still know that he was one of the badass characters. She does nothing about it. So kudos to them for doing it. It was awesome. I love the way how they presented it and put it together. This entire series, if you have not watched Voltron yet, now you got the time to watch all 8 seasons, binge like crazy. I'll watch it all over again. I'll enjoy it. This is by far the greatest translated and adopted anime series ever. The only series that was superseded by the original. I love the original. I will always cherish it, but everybody at DreamWorks Animation, Netflix deserves all the praise for what they did, and by not canceling it and not letting us see this show end. We get to see it all the way through. Thank you so much for that. By the way, while I was watching the final season, I was also putting together the LEGO VOLTRON Lego series that they brought out a few months ago or sometime this year. If you guys remember, excuse me, if you guys remember, I actually went to New York and my wife, love her to death for this, actually did the honors and gave me an early Christmas gift. Shalom. So I actually got a chance to, start putting it together. I'm going to tell you now, this is a 2,000-piece series that they come out with. It is legit. It is absolutely legit. The weight on this thing is absolutely outstanding. It's actually bigger than the original models. I remember the original models. I used to own the original Voltron, as I mentioned last time. And this is actually quite bigger. The scale is much bigger. The Black Lion alone. I started with the Black Lion. All right. I thought I was going to get this all done by the time, excuse me, by the time the entire series was over. It took me legit, even with a half-hour break, it took me a little over 9 hours nonstop to put together the Black Lion alone. That's alone. So far, I got 3 of them done. I got I did the Black Lion, took me 9 hours. I did the Green Lion. It probably took about like maybe 3 hours. I'm not sure. I didn't really time that one. But I did the Yellow Lion yesterday because that's the foot and that's a different that's a different design structure. That took me about 4.5. About 4.5 hours to do nonstop. So yeah, if you're going to get this, you got to make sure that you got the time to do it. Shout out to my man CJ, Chris Johnson, because he said he brought it a few months ago, 6 months ago, and no doubt that yeah, man, it's legit. It's like it has the same weight, and the way it's constructed, it's not going to break, it's not going to fall apart. It's geniusly designed and put together. So like the parts that you think is going to fall off, it's no way this thing's going to fall off. There's no way this thing's going to fall apart. So I got 2 more to go. I'm going to probably put one together today. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 2. I'm not sure if I'll maybe get them all done. I'm going to do a photo shoot with them and, take pictures of them. And then shortly after that, I'm going to put the whole thing together and I'm not going to mess with that thing completely. But it is absolutely, if you're a fan of Voltron, man, they did a hell of a job. The Filipino designer, that dude's a genius. Shout out to him, man. I believe his name is Lindy, if I remember correctly. And this is awesome. Awesome. It's great to be a fan of all this. So, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this edition of What's New in the World of A.C.M.G. I'm going to take a break, take some tea, come back, and we're going to review Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We'll do that right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dak Xavier Josiah, the host of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the podcast. You want to catch up with all of our podcast shows and hear from some of the hottest names in all of anime, comics, movies, and games, such as...
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto.
This is Stephanie Shea, the voice of Sailor Moon.
This is Ruben Langdon, voice of Ken Masters and Dante from Devil May Cry.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V.
This is Chris Battle, character designer of Teen Titans Go.
Here's your chance to check out all of that and more on TalkTimeLive.com. TalkTimeLive.com provides all of our ACMG content with new and previous episodes, exclusive interviews, articles, and much more. Visit TalkTimeLive.com and let us help you learn to let go, live life, and love all things ACMG.
Talk Time Live.
Hey, this is Bob Camp, co-creator of The Ren and Stimpy Show, and you're listening to ACMG Presents Talk Time Live.
Do it.
And now it's time for our talk topic of the week. Ready? Fight!
All right, folks, we are back with our talk topic of the week, and it is our review of the Golden Globe nominated animated feature, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. No one saw this coming. And I mean, not just the fact that this movie got nominated for a Golden Globe before it even came out. Nobody saw this being possibly the best Spider-Man movie of them all. It has now been reported that it's the highest reviewed Spider-Man movie ever to date. And, we'll have to see what Far From Home is going to do, and that's not taking anything away from what Homecoming did or anything like that, but this, by far, in my opinion, and maybe others, may be the best Sony Spider-Man movie in years. It maybe superseded Raimi's Spider-Man. This celebration of this character and the retelling of Miles Morales' origin story has been done so absolutely well. Shout out to Phil Lord and everybody involved in putting this movie together. This has been absolutely a tremendous, and I mean tremendous movie. I did not expect it to be this damn good, but, and take note, I think all the animated movies I've only seen this year, I still haven't seen Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet yet. I haven't, I've watched, what did I go see? The Incredibles 2, which I thought was going to be the best animated movie I've seen this year. No, they had to take a seat. It was long awaited. It was great, but we had to take a seat. Now, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is just so much more than what it is. The way they handled this story is absolutely, and with all of these different characters in this movie, you would think that, and when I first saw it, I was like, all right, bet they're doing a whole Miles Morales storyline here. Then when I found that it was based on the Spider-Verse, and I mean, all right, Peter Parker's going to be in there. That's cool. But then, Spider-Gwen is going to be here, Spider-Pig, and then noir Spider-Man, it started getting me like, okay, now is it going to be overwhelmed and is Miles going to be overshadowed? No. The way they wrote this story was that every character got their say and got their due, but they didn't overshadow Miles. Miles' story was still the biggest story of them all. He was still the main attraction. He was still the main focus. He was the ends to the means of what was going on. The premise of this movie is basically that Miles is a kid going into boarding school thanks to his mom and his father, who wants to make sure that he's in a right environment where he could develop his mentality because he's a genius. He doesn't want to be in a private school. He wants to be in a public school, or maybe this is a charter school because he had a lottery pick or something like that in the means. But he wanted to assimilate. He has to assimilate and situate himself into the new school. But he also wants, his parents wants to get him out of the bad lands of the neighborhood and also away from his uncle, who in fact, is the Prowler, but also his uncle has a love for that's the only really connection that him and his brother has, is the love for Miles. He does have this connection with Miles, but, he tried to make sure that he gets, doesn't get into trouble or get him involved in the trouble that he's with. The only connection that they really have in the story is that Mahershala's character, Uncle Aaron, if you will, they have a love for graffiti. So he takes them to neighborhoods and such like that to get involved with the graffiti areas or places that he could do his work in. And he does some pretty, really cool stuff. So they got their connection there. But while they're doing this, there is a Spider 42. If you guys are fans of Miles Morales in this story, Spider 42 is the radioactive spider that he gets bit off of. And somehow, some way, I think the spiders and everything in that area where they were doing graffiti at was connected to the Animex. I forgot the name of the company that it was that they were involved with, but that just happens to be, I guess, above the ground and the sewer area where they're at. So Miles winds up getting bit by the spider while doing that tag and in the subway, and his whole world changes from there. He has, I guess, what he considers puberty or whatnot. He ends up meeting Gwen, who's in his classroom as well. So they kind of connect in a very interesting way there. And lo and behold, Miles trying to figure out what's going on and goes back to to the area where he did the graffiti tag, winds up witnessing the death of Spider-Man, their universe of Spider-Man, and also noticing that it's Kingpin who's in charge, who was the one that killed him, and the Prowler, which is his uncle, and Tombstone in there. They find out that he's there. This is the part where the Prowler goes blitz trying to find Miles, and his really crazy chase scene, really cool chase scene. And this leads to Miles discovering a whole bunch of other things, including that there's this device that Peter wanted him to go after. Him knowing, and before Peter actually died, him realizing that, they have the same spider sense and power. He gives him this thumb drive that he has to go into the company to try to stop this big machine, which is creating different universes or allowing Kingpin to go into different universes to save Vanessa and his son. So this leads into Peter Parker and the 616 universe and all the stuff coming in, and also leading into other situations. And this is where the whole entire story goes in. But the prime situation is that it's up to Miles to be able, since it's in his universe, to be able to save all of them, because while they're in his universe, they're going through this little bit of a kind of universal seizure every so often. And the longer that they're there, the more that it's going to hurt them and, in fact, kill them. So it's up to Miles to figure out how to use his powers to help all of them, to save them, and all of the universes involved from there. I love the way they handle this and how they explain things. And there may be some elements in there that may go over some people's head, especially when it comes to Peter Parker from the 616 universe coming in to save or help Miles. And there was a scene right there where, where Kingpin apparently, killed the Ultimate Universe Peter Parker. And they did that differently because if you guys remember in the original books, it was the Punisher who killed the original Peter Parker. And by the way, that Peter Parker in the comics that Mark Bagley did, the Ultimate Spider-Man, which was the book that he did, the original Peter Parker was a teenager. The version in this one, he was a grown man, and Miles is younger. So they went along with that story. You know, they changed the storyline around for that aspect. But it was still well done. It was extremely well done the way they told it. So the Kingpin, along with the Prowler and Tombstone, the Prowler played by Mahershala Ali, this man just does no wrong. And you didn't even realize because he doesn't do his same voice. You don't hear the Cottonmouth voice. You don't hear any of the other voices that he's ever done, like from the Green Book or whatever. He's a totally different cat. He can change. I mean, he played on Roxanne, and he just plays different versions of himself or versions of his character and is able to change his voice around. He does an amazing job. Mahershala is the guy. He is he's the new Nino Brown. He's the new Wesley Snipes, in my opinion. Actually sans the actual, martial arts that he cannot do. But, you got Shamik Moore, who one of my favorite guys. He, I first discovered him on Dope, and then he was on the Get Out, and he did tremendous on every one of those deals. And he was perfect for Miles Morales. He played this character, and they focused heavily on the multicultural aspect of it, and I loved it. It was really well done, and he did a great job. You really believed in his role, and you followed him. You felt for this dude. You really rooted for this dude, and it just worked out so well. And they did it. I was stunned at how well they did this. Jake Johnson. Now, this was the part that I had problems with because Jake Johnson, I love him on That Girl. He's always funny on That Girl. He was also with that movie about him and who was it? Damon Wayans Jr. becoming fake cops and all this stuff. He's a really funny dude. Was he going to be able to play that role of Peter Parker? And I had doubts, but I had my reserves, but I left it open. Because I can't just go by the trailer. You can't just make a determination by a 1.5 minute trailer. Upon getting into this, his version of Peter Parker was great. Absolutely, I loved it. It was and this whole movie is such a great comedy. It's a great phenomenal action comedy. Like how they handled it is like, I really, in hindsight, I wanted to be a little bit more adventurous and action packed, but the way they did it, it was a perfect comedy version of what they did, and they handled everything so well. But Jake Johnson's role as Peter Parker was so great. He was just down and out version. I loved the ultimate version that he portrayed, but then he played this down and out version from the 616. And I loved the way that the story of how they told about the 616 and how he broke up with Mary Jane. And that's how they really broke up. And it wasn't, if anybody who knows, One More Day was the comic book where him and MJ truly kind of split up and broke up because of Mephisto, and his interaction with the situation. And they broke up from that. But they changed the storyline around for the 616 world. And he, from his heartbreak from not being with MJ and not wanting kids because he was worried about what was going to happen and whether they're going to create mutants, he was worried about that. He became a down and out dude, eating too much. And if you're a true Spider-Man fan, the crazy part about Spider-Man is he can eat a lot and his metabolism is kind of up because sort of kind of how the Flash is. So he normally can eat a lot. There was an issue of Spider-Man where him and MJ, this is back during the 90s and Eric Larson age when he was drawing it. There was a situation in there where he was eating constantly hamburgers and MJ was like, I know you have a much faster metabolism and you can burn that stuff off easily because of what you do, but you got to eat healthier than this. So it was funny. I reflected back on that as he was eating pizza on a constant and hamburgers and all this stuff and just letting himself go. But the funny part was you still seen his abs when he was still a little bit pudgy. And they kept reflecting on that too throughout the entire, movie, including Lily Tomlin, who played Aunt May, and she really did a great job as playing Aunt May. I loved her as Aunt May. Not only just love her, but she did her homework. I saw her in an interview. A lot of them did an interview on IMDb talking about actually what version of Spider-Man they want to see. And she went back. You could tell she did her homework. She did her comic book homework. Went back into a time when Aunt May got bit by a spider. It was a What If comic that they did about Aunt May becoming Spider-Woman or Spider-Ma'am. Ma'am, actually. And I was really impressed with that how much deep she went into that role to really get into the character of Aunt May and her version of Aunt May. Kudos to her in doing that. Also, Brian Tyree Henry, who's on ATL or Atlanta, he did a great job voicing Jefferson Davis's role, which is Miles's father in here. And these guys were top notch. Haley Stanford played Gwen Stacy, and everybody who did their role did it absolutely phenomenal here. Rio Morales, played by Luna Loren Velez. The great essence of this movie gave everything that they put together in Marvel Comics, the essence of what Miles Morales is supposed to be, a multicultural representation of Latino and African American, and just brought it into great harmony. And I love it. You got to see both representations that Miles played at the very beginning too, because you got him, just getting, interacting with everybody, whether it was his Latino community or the African American community or the Caucasian. He was the all around dude. And I love the representation of that. It was great. It was absolutely great. Chris Pine actually was in this too, playing another version of Peter Parker as well. There was just so many cool things. Nicolas Cage returns yet again, playing noir Spider-Man. If you guys remember, he was on Teen Titans Go playing the Superman. He finally got that role. Now he's back playing a really great version of noir Spider-Man. He was perfect for this role. Very dark and dissenting, and just so well done. Who was Peter Parker? Who was Peter Parker here? I got to find out who was that. I forgot who played him, but that role was, just everybody just played a really great role as well. Kingpin even, Liev Schreiber, of all people, like Sabretooth. It actually played as Wilson, a different version of Wilson Fisk. And I love that storyline, is that his purpose of, creating them, the whole point of it was that he was trying to, go to the multiverses to get back his son and his wife, Vanessa, who apparently died at the hands of Spider-Man and from a car crash. So that was a little bit deep there. So he had a huge revenge for Spider-Man, and he ended up being the one to kill him in the Ultimate Universe. But one of the favorite parts of this is just watching Mahershala Ali play as the Prowler. The Prowler's character was really great, and when he was in Prowler mode and he had the suit on and everything, he was vicious. Dude was vicious at all. And they had one of my favorite roles too, was all of the entire crew when Aunt May introduced Parker and Miles and Gwen to all the other Spider-Mans in this secret compartment in the backyard in their tool shed, which led to an entire layer that Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe created, which consisted of all of the suits from the comic book universe and the PlayStation PS4 version of the Yuri Lowenthal character was in here too. So they paid homage to all of that. It was absolutely great. And just seeing that as well. My favorite scene is probably when Doc Ock, the female version of Doc Ock, played by Catherine Hong, came in, and the Prowler came in, and Tombstone came in, and they had this big battle and just wrecking all of Aunt May's house and everything. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Zoe Kravitz, believe it or not, was actually in his too as Mary Jane, and it was cool. The art design of this thing was actually interesting too. First of all, I'm a big fan of Sarah Pichelli, who was the original artist of the Ultimate Spider-Man, the Miles Morales Spider-Man books. She does phenomenal work with them. They got a new artist out now that is doing it, but they gave her, if you're a fan of her work, they gave her a little bit of a shout out in there in the scene where Miles is looking at his phone and Sarah Pichelli's name comes up on there too. There was a few hidden things, and of course, God bless them, they also had a cameo from the one and only Stan Lee in there as well. So, I mean, you just couldn't ask for anything more in this series. It was just absolutely great. I love this movie. The way they did handle everything, and Miles being the one that they really focused on, and him learning how to get his powers, his Venom Blast, his actual, visibility powers, which there was really funny moments of Peter trying to train him in order to do it, and them getting the computer out of the, I think it was called Animax building that they were, trying to infiltrate. And that's when they found out that the doctor, Octavius, was actually Doc Ock in this universe. So it was just some really great scenes in there as well. But the art, I love the art style, because I seen traces, and I talked to a friend of mine about this too. Shout out to Walter out there. There were some traces of Pichelli's artwork, along with Mark Bagley Jr., who was the original artist for Ultimate Spider-Man, and some of the original. He took over for the Amazing Spider-Man right after Eric Larson left to go to Image Comics. So you had that situation there, and pretty much you saw a little bit of Eric Larson's style too. And I swear to goodness, I have to watch this movie again, because at the very beginning, I swear to goodness, they showed a comic book cover of Eric Larson in there. And plus, not only that, his symbol, his normal, each Marvel artist does whoever illustrated Spider-Man and draws Spider-Man, does their own version of the spider emblem in the middle. I've always thought that Eric Larson did it the best. I know Todd McFarlane did his version a different way, but and Sarah Pichelli, when she did the spider, the Miles Morales suit better, she did a great version of his too. Which I wish, that's my only thing. I really wish that they did, come out with that version for him at the end when he started to suit up and he spray painted. He spray painted Miles Morales's his suit from Spider-Man's, but that was a celebration of him being a graffiti artist as well, too. So I understood that. I understood what they did with that. But, the symbol, the insignia, the actual emblem that was on his chest mimicked the Eric Larson style. And sort of kind of, there was just hints of like different art styles combined together in here. And the eyes, to me, was very kind of Eric Larson in a sense. I mean, there were some traces of a lot of different art styles, and I would love to see the behind the scenes of what led to that art style. I'm dying. I'm hoping that they do a behind the scenes, feature on when this comes out on Blu-ray and all this stuff, telling us about the art style and who did they reference off of, because I'm really interested in that. But overall, if you're a Spider-Man fan, this movie had absolutely everything you wanted. If you're a Miles Morales fan and you wanted to see Miles Morales in the limelight, this is it. Not only that, let me add on to this the fact that he was rocking the classic Jordans, points for them. The fact that they were playing Biggie on the deal, the fact that they played a lot of great hip hop in this movie. Not only just that, but I like the way that they had Miles humming and trying to do the song that Post Malone has done for the Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack. And I immediately got that soundtrack the minute that this thing was over, because there was so much great music in there. And lo and behold, I got the soundtrack, listened to it on the way home. That song is on there. That Post Malone song that he's singing that he sings in the beginning of the movie, and then he sings as he's trying to, hide from Kingpin and all of them while he's in the ceiling and he's trying to calm himself down. So he sings that song. That song is in there, and that's a song by Post Malone that he put together. Post Malone is really, really good. I really am a late bloomer to his music and how he does things, but dude is really, really good. I'm a whole his late bloomer, but better late than never on that. But I'm telling you now, not only is this movie a A+. The soundtrack along with it is an A+. And I say that this is the second best soundtrack only rivaled by Black Panther this year. I'm definitely saying that. If you not only go out of your way to see this movie, get the soundtrack. It is awesome. Absolutely awesome. I already put it out there in the A.C.M.G Facebook group. And man, people are digging it, man. It is really, really good. So overall, if you're a Spider-Man fan, if you're a Miles Morales fan, this or whatever version of Spider-Man is on here, and please stay to the very, 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 very end. Because, like I said, if you're a Spider-Man Evolve fan, you're going to love, excuse me, you're going to absolutely love what they did with this movie. And it's a credit to everybody involved. It's a great celebration of what Steve Ditko and Stan Lee has put together. And they do tribute to him and give him a tribute at the end because this was done, quite after they had enough time to put that in. So a celebration of this character, a celebration of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's work, and Marvel in general. Sony's best Spider-Man movie ever to date. I don't know if they're going to do any more Spider-Man movies. I think they should stop right here. This literally I recently saw the Venom movie. What else? That's all I can say. That's all I can say about it. What I can say about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is if you've seen the Venom movie and you didn't like it, this washes the symbiotic taste out of your mouth completely. Completely. This is like the Brita filter of bad Spider-Man movies right here. So, and they do touch on Spider-Man 3 too. They don't let that go. So, it's really a tribute to everything else. Go out of your way to check it out. And, it's awesome. Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this edition of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. Thank you Thank you so very much for taking the time to deal with my cold, my situation, but I had to come out and talk about this. This was awesome. I went out of my way to go out there to check it out. We went to an early screening and everything where nobody was there, where I can infect them with my cold. So, and enjoyed it all the better. So, go out of your way, check it out. We still got Aquaman coming up. I know some people have gotten a chance to do an early screening to see it because of Amazon Prime. Unfortunately, I'm going to wait till I see it and during the thing, because I could, but it's in theaters I don't like to go to. So I decided to opt out of that. Bumblebee's coming out too. If all that's playing, I got a theater like 2-3 blocks away from me. So I'm chilling until then. Unless they do the early screenings up there, I'm chilling. But otherwise, Aquaman's coming. I heard good things about that. Bumblebee's coming. Hearing great things about that. And what is the last one? There's one more, isn't it? Yeah, I'll figure it out. But and then we got 2019 coming. Whew. Big ones to check out. We got Spider-Man, Far From Home. We got Captain Marvel. We got Avengers Endgame, which, by the way, if you're listening to this right now, I put it out there yesterday. I've been talking about this. We did it before. The Gathering is coming back in Philadelphia. I'm so sick. The Gathering is coming back. Our A.C.M.G. members in Philly, we're going to get back together again. We're going to head over to Movie Tavern for the 3 big Marvel movies coming up. Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man, Far From Home. We're going to have a great time at that restaurant movie theater combination. And get up together and just all actually get out of the Matrix and into the real world once again. Had a great time with the group that we had last time. We're going to come back with them and even more. And we're going to make it. This is truly what social media should all be about. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do that. There should be another select start this week. We're winding down to the holiday season, so I think this may be the last week that I will be doing shows. So there may be there's definitely should be a select start because I did get a Double Dragon as well. I am also getting a 400 gig card for the Nintendo Switch, so I'll get to talk about that too. That should be coming this week, and get to let you guys know if it's good enough and where to get it. Of course, it's Amazon, but where to find it. So I'll let you know about that soon, as much as I do a tester out for that. But and any other news is going on in the gaming world, and we'll see what's going on next week for me to do another show or not. Whether I do another show or I'm just going to go on vacation for the holiday season and bid you all adieu. But for now, that is it for us. Oh, stupid me, forgot to mention, Jeff Thorne will be on the show this week, so that'll be another Talk Time Live exclusive for the holiday season. We're going to talk about the first half of Avengers Black Panther's Quest and talk about the Shadow Council and all types of things that's going on in that season, and talk about what we should be looking after furthermore. So we're going to talk about all that and much, much more. It's going to be great to have him back on the show. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to rejuvenate until this week. And all I got to say is learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. I am out of here. People, have a great week. A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live is brought to you in part by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design. Your choice for web design, graphic design, and all multimedia development needs. Visit VFISAD.com and let us bring your vision to reality.